In the early 1800s, when England was covered in soot and the streets of its villages smelled of coal and smoke, a boy named Jonathan Whitmore was born into the kind of poverty that could crush a man before he even took his first step. His family lived in a dilapidated cottage at the edge of a small town near the river. The roof leaked whenever it rained, the floorboards were warped and splintered, and the cold crept in at night, cutting to the bone. His father labored in a brick kiln, his hands raw and cracked, his lungs blackened with ash. His mother washed clothes for wealthy merchants, often going without food herself to feed Jonathan and his younger siblings. From the first day of his life, Jonathan knew hunger and struggle as constant companions, and he understood that the world offered nothing freely. From a young age, Jonathan felt the sting of rejection and ridicule. Other children had shoes, worn coats, and parents who could spare a smile. He had patched-up clothes, worn-out shoes, and parents who could barely keep their heads above water. At school, he was overlooked. Teachers ignored him. Classmates mocked his tattered clothing and the way his hands were rough from work. But Jonathan possessed a rare fire in his chest, a fire that whispered every night as he huddled under a thin blanket, staring at the flickering candlelight. "I will rise. One day, I will leave this place behind." At the age of 10, tragedy struck. A fever swept through the village, and Jonathan's father succumbed to it after weeks of suffering. His mother wept silently by the dim candlelight, her eyes hollow with grief and exhaustion. Jonathan realized that he could no longer depend on anyone to provide for him or protect him. He became the man of the household before he was a man at all. He left school and began taking whatever work he could find, carrying coal, delivering bread, tending to livestock, repairing fences, and hauling water. Each day left his small frame exhausted and his fingers blistered, but he endured, learning the first lesson of his life: survival is earned, not given. By 12, Jonathan had discovered a hidden skill, an uncanny understanding of how things worked. He would watch blacksmiths forge iron, millers grind grain, and carpenters shape wood, and he memorized every movement, every technique. He began experimenting on his own, taking scraps of metal, wood, and discarded tools, and fashioning small inventions in secret. Some nights he slept on the floor beside his crude workshop, his hands raw, his eyes swollen from strain. Failure visited him daily. Machines broke, inventions failed, and fires sometimes consumed his labor. But with every setback, his resolve hardened. Pain was no longer an enemy, it was a teacher. At 15, he created a small pulley system that could lift heavy sacks more efficiently than laborers could manage. With great pride, he presented it to the local mill owner. The man laughed, dismissing him as a foolish boy. "Boy, leave the work to men," he sneered. Jonathan returned home, bruised in spirit but not defeated. That night, he worked longer, harder, refining his design, sharpening every edge, and improving every mechanism. He learned to embrace rejection as fuel, to convert ridicule into strength, and to let failure guide him rather than crush him. By 17, Jonathan had perfected several inventions: a water pump that could irrigate fields faster, a grain winnower that reduced labor by half, and small mechanical tools that eased the burdens of local craftsmen. Yet the path forward was never easy. Rivals attempted to sabotage his work. Supplies were stolen. A storm destroyed his workshop, reducing months of effort to ashes. He often went without food, sleeping on cold wooden floors, his hands blistered, his back aching, and yet he never stopped. He had learned that true wealth was not measured in coins, but in persistence, skill, and the courage to keep moving forward, when the world seemed determined to crush you. At 20, Jonathan's fortunes began to shift. A traveling merchant from London, intrigued by tales of a young inventor in the village, visited and saw Jonathan demonstrating his devices. The merchant tested each one, and his eyes widened with astonishment. "Who built these?" he asked. "I did," Jonathan said quietly. The merchant studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I will provide the funds for you to expand. But know this, talent is nothing without discipline, and wealth is meaningless without vision. Do not squander this chance." Jonathan accepted, trembling with anticipation and fear. The workshop that followed was modest, but alive with potential. Jonathan worked from dawn until midnight, repairing broken machines, teaching apprentices, and experimenting with new designs. The early months were brutal. Orders were delayed, workers quarreled, rivals attempted legal challenges to claim his inventions. Supplies arrived late, and at times he had to pawn personal belongings to keep the operation alive. Yet, in every trial, he saw opportunity. He learned to negotiate, to innovate under pressure, to lead men who had no reason to trust a boy from the slums. Slowly, the fruits of his labor began to appear. By 25, Jonathan's devices were being adopted by mills and factories across northern England. His ingenuity, combined with relentless discipline, set him apart from competitors. Orders multiplied. He reinvested every penny into expanding his workshop, hiring and training more apprentices, and refining his machines. By 30, he owned multiple factories, employed hundreds, and had established a reputation as one of the most brilliant inventors and industrialists of his era. Yet he remained humble, always remembering the cold nights, the hunger, the ridicule, and the crushing poverty of his youth. Jonathan did not hoard his success. He returned often to his village, providing tools, teaching children, and creating opportunities for young people trapped in the same cycle of poverty that had nearly claimed him. He would tell them, "The world will push you, mock you, and try to break you. But within you lies a fire. Endure, persist, build. And when others doubt, let your work speak louder than words." His life became legend. The boy who had scavenged for scraps and slept hungry became a man who changed the world. He proved that greatness is not bestowed by birthright, nor is it granted by luck. It is earned through toil, discipline, perseverance, and the refusal to surrender. Jonathan Whitmore's story reminds every listener, every reader, and every dreamer that no matter how deep the darkness, how cruel the world, or how impossible the circumstances, the human spirit, when forged in struggle, can rise to unimaginable heights. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories inspired by Eric Bertrand Larssen.